Hi, I'm Bob Fitzgerald, and welcome to Test Drive Off-Road.
Test Drive Off-Road is the first spin-off of Acolade's racing series before being bought by Infogrames a few years later. Released in 1997 for the PC and PlayStation, this is the only test drive game to be made by Elite Systems, which are still around, despite many setbacks like not paying their employees and royalties until 8 years ago. Typical corporate twats, I tell ya. Ooh, music by Gravity Kills! Sounds like a parody a teenage edgelord would make for Newgrounds. Here's the intro full of stock footage of trucks doing things most people won't be doing with theirs. How exciting. The menus are self-explanatory. They have words. You can do a single race or racing leagues with 6 races each without a last after every 2 races. There's mixed leagues and class leagues, which are just sworn make championships, and apparently the track lineup is randomized. That definitely won't bite me in the ass later. You have a choice of a handful of rides, just 4, a Humvee, a truck, a G-Thing, and the SUV equivalent of the Mini. You can get more cars by entering codes in the name entry, but even for 97 it's quite lackluster. First impressions are everything, and oh dear, the draw distance is worse than Superman 64. It's almost like I'm playing Micro Machines 2. I'll come back to it and explain as to why that's bad, but that and the resulting pop-up doesn't bode well for racers. Even if you pair the draw distance, the graphics are a mess. This is from 1997, right? Wow, that Hummer looks narrower than it should. Aside from the track body and the terrain, the rest is just sprites. Even the wheels are sprites, like it's Diddy Kong Racing. I wouldn't mind much if the frame rate wasn't so shit. It's limited to 20 FPS, so I presume the game didn't run well at 30, and Elite didn't bother optimizing it. So that's why it looks and plays like a 3DO game. For sound, it's mediocre at best. Would you listen to this engine noise? And this was considered realistic by at least one gaming magazine back then. Man, these trucks only have 1 gear or what?
3 laps to go. Awesome! Checkpoint 1. We're jamming now.
As you heard from this video's intro, the game has Bob Fitzgerald as the special guest mouthpiece, telling you how many laps are left, what checkpoint you crossed or missed, and begging you to be careful on the corners.
That's gotta hurt.
God, I wanna punch him. Every time he cheers when you jump, it's aggravating.
We're jamming now. Awesome! We're jamming now. Awesome! We're jamming now. Awesome!
At least I can turn him off. Furthermore, what the hell is he even doing here? He's more appropriate for NBA Live, not a goddamn racer. It's like Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler commentating football. Doesn't matter which. Though it would have been more entertaining if Dusty Rhodes was a commentator. How's that music from Gravity Kills? Well, there's only 3 from them, and the rest are just original music from the internal team. It's alright, heard better than that, but the GK songs complement the off-roading thing well. The rest may be more techno, but they're not as bad as Destruction Derbies. As for gameplay, fuck, it's so under C-rate. The actual trucks haven't turned into so this ridiculous in real life, even when slowing down. Oh, and don't get me started on the brakes. Well, I'm gonna start it anyway. They're relatively late, the response are abysmal at times. Makes maneuvering sharp turns frustrating than it should. Well, here's my problem. Power sync was off by default. How delightfully devilish of you Brits. Now the handling is slightly better, and you respond to the last checkpoint you cross like Trackmania, but that still isn't enough. Even with anti-skid on, the game's physics like to fuck you up just as when you land from a jump. I get that it's trying to be realistic, but all the critics do is making the game more frustrating than entertaining. You could do so much with the power of the PS2097. Fuck, I can respawn on my own when I'm flipped? I hate waiting. And oh boy, it's accelerating a doozy. It starts off slow, not so agonizing but still. But as if these trucks have VTEC in them, the car then speeds up considerably on a straight line, going up to 100 miles an hour. And with the issue of draw distance, reaction times will be so late you'll crash into a barrel before you know it. Hell, you go so fast you might get through them. Sure, there were a few flaws that were honest mistakes of mine, but if you ever play this game for some reason, you can thank me later. By default, the AI difficulty is set to easy, and honestly I went with it for most of the footage, though with all of this mess, who can blame me? I wanna try hard though, and sure enough, the opponents are keeping up with me on straights. Not for long though, but no matter the difficulty, even on easy, the opponents will still get ahead by occasionally going through the shortcuts. So the best strategy is to always do that. I'm stating the goddamn obvious, aren't I? Oh, and you're not actually racing against just free drivers, you're also racing against unseen drivers doing their own stuff, which only makes winning the championship harder. Isn't that a little too much? The tracks themselves have themes like in Super Mario Kart. There's a grassy, foresty bridge one, the desert one, and the snowy one. What they all have in common is that they have 5 checkpoints you must pass in order, obviously, before crossing the finish line to make a lap. Plus they have jumps and bumps that make you play through a nightmare even with easy opponents, as well as shortcuts that are usually flat and are very well hidden. And by that I mean the draw distance, the objects, and the high speed at some points find them so well that you didn't know there were shortcuts in the game, unless you saw an AI driver taking one, and this is why track memorization is key. The grassy ones are fairly easy, this one is almost like a normal speedway, and this other one is just meh. The desert ones are a bit challenging, but still have simple layouts to traverse. But 2 of the snowy tracks are actually one of the worst I've driven. Winter Wonderland is long and twisty with many unpredictable corners thanks to a you-know-what. Basically the longest and the hardest track in my opinion, and this is already unlocked from the start. At least this shortcut is very visible even if it's very wide from the snow. Devil's Elbow isn't any better with these parts. Thankfully I'm more used to it after finding out the shortcuts. Winter Wonderland still sucks. I think the names are swapped. Winning a mixed league will give you this splash screen of a girl in bikini next to your truck. Ready! And you also get slow-mo footage of the truck of your choice doing off-roady things. Ah, that's a nice reward. And the new truck gets unlocked. Ha! They're just reverse variants to slightly change terrain, layout, and shortcuts, except for one desert track which is a figure 8. I expected more. Test Drive Off-Road was more of an exercise in frustration than a video game. You don't know how many times I had to restart a race in a snow track, and now it's ready for Winter Wonderland to show up. Jeez, I want to get out of this shit jamboree. I'm glad the later entries were better. I didn't say they were good, but they're okay at best. Maybe I just don't get this game. Must be Eurojack thing.